It was just after dawn on December 23, 1944, when a German tank commander near the village of Hotten in Belgium felt something deeply wrong but could not explain it. The road ahead was quiet, almost peaceful, with frost clinging to the trees and a thin fog hanging low over the Ardennes hills. His King Tiger, weighing nearly 70 tons, sat like a steel fortress, its massive 80mm gun pointed forward, confident and unstoppable. For months, German crews had been told there was nothing the Americans had that could reliably stop them at long range. And yet somewhere beyond the fog, an unseen threat was already lining up its shot. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below. At that same moment, less than 2 miles away, a group of American tank destroyer crewmen crouched inside a thin-skinned vehicle that looked nothing like a heavy tank. It had no turret roof, no thick armour, and no reputation. Most German officers had never even heard its name. It was the M36 Jackson, and mounted inside its open turret was a long 90mm gun that few enemy commanders believed existed on the battlefield. The men inside knew the truth. They also knew that if they were spotted first, they would not survive long enough to fire a second round. The M36 Jackson had entered combat quietly in late 1944, almost unnoticed amid the chaos of collapsing fronts and desperate German counterattacks. It was not a glamorous machine. It did not inspire confidence at first glance. Its armour was thin enough that even a near miss could wound the crew with fragments. The open turret meant snow, rain and shrapnel could fall directly inside. But the gun changed everything. The 90mm M3 cannon was the same weapon used on the Pershing heavy tank, capable of punching through German armour at distances that shocked even American commanders when they first saw the test results. By the winter of 1944, American forces in Europe had learned painful lessons about German armour. Shermans had struggled against Panthers and Tigers since Normandy. Tank crews knew the sound of German guns and feared them. A Panther could destroy a Sherman before the American crew even realized it was under fire. The King Tiger, introduced in small numbers, was even worse. Its frontal armour was nearly immune to most Allied guns. German crews felt untouchable. Many believed they were invincible beyond 500 yards. That belief would soon be shattered. The M36 was rushed into service because commanders were desperate. Reports from France and the Hürtgen Forest made it clear that existing tank destroyers could not reliably defeat heavy German armour at range. The M10 and M18 were fast and aggressive, but their guns lacked the stopping power needed against the latest German designs. Engineers took the proven chassis of the M10 and fitted it with the powerful 90mm gun. There was little time for refinement. Crews trained quickly, often learning on the move, as the Germans prepared their last major offensive in the West. When the German attack began on December 16, 1944, the Ardennes exploded into chaos. Snow-covered roads filled with retreating American units. Communication lines broke down. German armour pushed forward under the cover of fog and poor weather, exactly as their planners intended. King Tigers rolled through villages, crushing roadblocks and scattering infantry. Many American soldiers believed nothing could stop them, but scattered among the defensive lines were small groups of M36 Jacksons, waiting quietly, using terrain, patience, and range as their weapons. One of those crews belonged to the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, positioned near the Author River. Their orders were simple and terrifying. Hold the line, delay the German advance at any cost. Sergeant William McLean, a veteran of earlier fighting in France, commanded one of the M36. He knew his vehicle could not trade shots with a King Tiger up close. The Jackson's strength was distance. If they could see the enemy first, and if the range was right, the 90mm could do what no Sherman gun could reliably accomplish. As the fog lifted slightly that morning, McLean's gunner spotted movement on a distant ridgeline. Through binoculars, the unmistakable shape of a King Tiger emerged, its massive turret slowly scanning the valley. The range was long, nearly 2,800 yards by their estimate. Under normal circumstances, firing at that distance would have been considered pointless. But the 90mm gun changed the rules. The crew worked silently, each man focused, knowing that one mistake would end them all. The first shot cracked through the cold air, a sharp, flat sound unlike the deeper boom of German guns. The round flew for several seconds before striking the King Tiger's turret. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then smoke poured from the impact point. The German tank stopped. Its turret froze in place. Inside, the crew had been hit by something they never expected. A penetration at that range was supposed to be impossible. Within moments, flames burst from the engine deck. The King Tiger was dead. Further down the line, another German tank commander watched in disbelief as his lead vehicle burned. He ordered his crew to scan for enemy tanks, expecting Shermans or tank destroyers closer than a mile away. What he did not expect was death from beyond visual certainty. Before he could react, another 90mm round slammed into his hull. This one did not penetrate, but it shocked the crew and forced them to halt. The psychological impact was immediate. The sense of invulnerability vanished. German reports from that week show confusion and frustration. Crews described being engaged from extreme distances by an unknown American weapon. Some believed it was a new heavy tank. Others thought it might be naval guns firing from hidden positions. The truth was simpler and more humiliating. Thin-skinned American tank destroyers were killing the most feared tanks in Europe without ever coming into close combat. The M36. Crews paid a price for every success. When German artillery found their positions, the open turrets became deadly traps. Shrapnel tore through exposed crewmen. Machine gun fire forced commanders to keep their heads down. But the gun kept firing. Each destroyed German tank bought precious time. Roads clogged with wrecks. Supply columns stalled. The German timetable slipped hour by hour, mile by mile. By December 24th, near the village of Mannheim, another M36 unit ambushed a column of German armour moving along a narrow road bordered by frozen fields. Using pre-measured ranges and landmarks, the Jacksons opened fire from nearly 3,000 yards. One King Tiger after another was hit, some disabled, others destroyed outright. German infantry scattered, unsure where the fire was coming from. The road became a graveyard of steel. Word spread quickly among American units. The M36 was no longer an unknown machine. Crews whispered about its power, its reach, and its danger. Commanders began, placing them on high ground behind ridges, covering long approaches. The Jackson became a sniper, not a brawler. Its role was clear. Kill the enemy before he knows you are there. For the Germans, the shock was profound. Their doctrine relied on armour superiority and psychological dominance. When that dominance failed, morale cracked. Tank commanders grew cautious. Advances slowed. Requests for reconnaissance increased. The fear that had once belonged to American crews now crept into German minds. Somewhere out there, unseen, was a gun that could kill them from beyond their own effective range. As Christmas Eve approached, the snow deepened and the fighting intensified. The Battle of the Bulge was reaching its most desperate phase. German fuel shortages worsened. Allied air power waited for clear skies. And hidden among the forests and hills, the M36 Jacksons continued their deadly work, rewriting the rules of armoured warfare, one long-range shot at a time. What the Germans still did not fully understand was that this was only the beginning. The 90mm gun had more surprises to deliver, and the M36 crews were growing more confident with every engagement. The myth of the invincible King Tiger was dying in the cold Ardennes air, and it was being killed by a weapon most German commanders never knew they had to fear. By Christmas morning, December 25th, 1944, the Ardennes no longer felt like a surprise battlefield. It felt like a slow, grinding test of nerves. Snow fell steadily, muffling sound and hiding movement. German columns were still pushing west, but the speed was gone. Every open road now felt dangerous. Every ridgeline felt watched. Somewhere out there, American guns were waiting and German tank crews no longer trusted distance to keep them safe. Near Bastogne, elements of the 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion were repositioning their M36 Jacksons under orders issued just after midnight. The message was brief and urgent. German heavy armour had been spotted moving toward key crossroads south of the town. The Americans did not have many tanks to spare and infantry units were exhausted. Once again, the burden would fall on a few thin-skinned vehicles with very long guns. Lieutenant Charles Weaver, barely 24 years old, commanded a section of 2 M36s overlooking a frozen valley near the village of Cibray. Weaver had studied the terrain carefully. He chose firing positions that allowed long sight lines but offered quick escape routes. His crews dug in, using snow and brush to break up the outlines of their vehicles. They knew the drill by now. Fire first, fire far, move immediately. Just after 10 a.m., German armour appeared. 2 King Tigers and several Panthers moved cautiously along the valley floor, infantry riding on their decks. The Germans were alert now, turrets scanned constantly. But even alert crews could not see what they did not expect. The range was extreme, just over 2,700 yards. Weaver hesitated only a moment. He gave the signal. The first 90mm round struck the lead King Tiger just below the turret ring. The penetration was partial, but it jammed the turret and wounded the gunner inside. The second shot came seconds later, this time piercing the side armour as the tank began to turn. Flames erupted almost instantly. German infantry leapt from the decks and ran for cover, slipping on the ice as machine gun fire stitched the snow around them. The second King Tiger tried to reverse, its engine roaring, but another 90mm round slammed into the rear armour. This time, the penetration was complete. The tank shuddered and stopped. Smoke poured out, followed by fire. The Panthers scattered, firing blindly toward the ridgeline. Their shells fell short. The M36s had already moved, disappearing behind the hill before German gunners could adjust their aim. Encounters like this repeated across the Bulge. The M36 Jackson did not fight often, but when it did, the results were decisive. German after-action reports from late December describe heavy losses to long-range American fire that could not be accurately traced. Some commanders believed the Americans had deployed a new heavy tank in secret. Others suspected fixed anti-tank guns of unusually large caliber. Very few correctly identified the M36, and fewer still understood how vulnerable their prized heavy tanks had become. The key was ammunition. By late 1944, American industry had solved a critical problem. New armour-piercing rounds for the 90mm gun, including HVAP ammunition, could punch through even the thick armour of a King Tiger under the right conditions. These rounds were scarce, and crews were ordered to save them for the heaviest targets. When used properly, they turned the M36 into a true tank killer. On December 30th, near the town of March, an M36 from the 702nd Tank Destroyer Battalion recorded one of the longest confirmed kills of the war. Using a ridge as cover and firing downhill, the crew engaged a stationary King Tiger at just under 3,000 yards. The first round struck the mantlet and failed to penetrate. The second hit lower, exploiting a weak angle. The third round broke through the side armour. The German tank burned for hours, visible for miles. By New Year's Day, 1945, the momentum had shifted. Allied aircraft returned to the skies. Fuel shortages crippled German movement. Roads littered with destroyed vehicles slowed every advance. And behind many of those wrecks was the quiet work of M36 crews who rarely received attention at the time. They did not charge forward. They did not duel at close range. They waited, watched, and struck from a distance the enemy thought was safe. The psychological effect on German crews was severe. King Tiger commanders, once aggressive, now hesitated before moving into open ground. Requests for infantry screens increased. Progress slowed further. In armoured warfare, hesitation is often fatal. The Germans could not afford it anymore. American infantry units noticed the change immediately. Where heavy tanks had once rolled forward confidently, they now stopped, probed, and withdrew. Morale improved. Soldiers who had felt helpless against German armour now believed the enemy could be beaten. The M36 did more than destroy tanks. It restored confidence at a critical moment. Despite its success, the M36 remained a dangerous vehicle for its crew. German artillery and mortars took a steady toll. Open turrets offered little protection against airbursts. Winter exposure caused frostbite and exhaustion. Crews slept in their vehicles, ate cold rations, and stayed alert for days at a time. But they knew their role mattered. Every long-range kill saved lives closer to the front. As January wore on, the German offensive collapsed completely. The Battle of the Bulge ended not with a dramatic surrender, but with a slow retreat. Destroyed tanks were abandoned where they stood, fuel tanks empty, engines silent. Among them were dozens of King Tigers, many knocked out by guns the Germans never believed could reach them. In the months that followed, the M36 Jackson continued to serve across Europe. It supported advances into Germany, covering open ground and guarding flanks. Its reputation grew among American units, even if it never became famous in the public eye. Tank destroyer crews knew what they had accomplished. They had faced the most feared armoured vehicle of the war and beaten it on their own terms. After the war, historians would debate exact ranges and specific engagements. Some claims would be questioned. Others confirmed. But the broader truth remained unchanged. The M36 Jackson, armed with its 90mm gun, shattered a dangerous myth. Heavy armour was not invincible, distance was no longer safety. And in the frozen forests of the Ardennes, a quiet American weapon helped decide the fate of an entire campaign. The Germans never truly understood what hit them until it was too late. And for the crews of the M36, that was exactly how it had to be. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.